Oof, let's go live. How exciting. It has been a week or so. I have had so many wonderful things happen in the last week and a half. And Ripley, I know you want to be a part of this, but really, I'm running the gauntlet as per usual, doing a live with my office door open so that Ripley can tell you all what he thinks. So if you actually don't know who Ripley is, let alone who I am Aileen Day. I am the owner of Meraki Business Solutions and Value Driven Brand and Aileen Day Consulting, because I'm greedy and I like to have my fingers in lots of bloody pies. Business is an evolution. So we start with one and we work through to the others until we get to where we are today. If you are joining us because you saw the notification pop up and you're curious as to know what it is you're willing to lose for the sake of poor communication. Now, we are going to do things a little bit differently. I very, very rarely, very disgustingly, very rarely post anything about my business on here, even though it is my business and you are here because you like my business. So I today released my very first newsletter. Oh my God. Is that not a stressful thing? If you have not done that before, if you are in business and you don't have a newsletter, then if you do go to the lengths of making one, then you're going to find out it's a little bit nerve-wracking. What do people want to read? What do they want to know about? What's going to stop this email ending up in the bin like 90% of everybody's emails do? So initially, I thought that could be a really good excuse not to do it, and that certainly worked for me for a very long time. But recently, I was having a chat to an amazing businesswoman, Emma McQueen. You may have heard of her. She does such fantastic work, and I'll tag her so that you can go and check her out. But Emma was basically saying that I am doing you all a disservice by not outreaching and communicating to you through a newsletter. So I sucked it up. I put my big knickers on and I made a newsletter. And so it just got released about an hour, 2 hours ago. And yes, I'm very pleased with myself that I got the fuck out of my own way. And I can now take the opportunity to share more information about the joy of sex, about customer, employee, and human experiences to you and to so many more people. So because of that, I invite you'll see in the comments there is a link for you to sign up to said newsletter, so that there is no FOMO for you, because nobody likes missing out on good shit, right? And that's what it's going to be. That's the plan. And it's only going to be better and better with your engagement and feedback as well. Hey, Michelle, you got it? Yay, that's so awesome. I tell you what, apart from creating more content, that you then have to, carefully curate to make sure that it hits the mark and doesn't hit the bloody deletion button. Learning how to do more things in different platforms is also half the battle. So learning how to use Active Campaign and templates and all this other stuff. I was like, ugh, I need a PA. I need a PA who's got this shit down locked. So, but it's good to learn. It's good to challenge ourselves and get out of our own way and just make shit happen. Because what we always say: if not now, then when? Right? You're always going to find an excuse not to do something. So I have officially run out of excuses, and thank you, Emma, for pushing me over the edge and helping me get my shit sorted. You will have some great insights to share. Thank you. That's the plan, Stan. Tech. Ugh, I know, right? Me and tech. Someone said to me, oh, it's a story you tell yourself that you're no good at tech. I'm like, damn straight, it's a fucking story. It's a true story. It's non-fiction, mate. My ex-husband used to always get very perplexed as to how I used to lead a team of IT people, and when I would struggle to turn my computer on. I said, I'm a people person. They've got the IT, I got the people. Hey, Jeff, get out of our own way. I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And I love it too. So here's a fun thing, and I just had a catch up this morning with the most amazing Lisa O'Neill, and I'll tag her too, because, I'm just going to name drop the shit out of people because they're fucking awesome. But Lisa, a few months ago, I was talking to her, and she suggested creating a to-don't list. And I wonder if I could, bear with me 1 second. So I have gone and created a to-don't list. And on my to-don't list, the very first thing you'll notice says, don't play small. And I said to her this morning, I find it very interesting from a human behavior point of view that despite having a very energetic and what is deemed confident persona, that I am also very, very good at people. I thought that has to stop. I have to match my play with my personality, and sometimes that might rub people up the wrong way, but sometimes that might actually just work out for the benefit of everybody. So that is what I'm doing. And it's so curious because so many people were talking about how they hate doing videos, and I was like, mate, got that down pat, no stress. And they said, so, but you can't pick up the phone and talk to someone about what you do? And I'm like, hate talking about myself. So that is why I very rarely in these streams do anything that would be linked to directly selling anything. I hate it. But I also have to get through and past that. And there's definitely steps being made to do exactly that. So, but we are here today, our dearly beloved, to talk about poor communication. And it came to light recently in an interaction that I had with somebody that was some really disappointing communication or lack of communication. And I came home after that interaction and I thought to myself, isn't it curious what they put on the line by not communicating effectively? And I know that communication is probably one of the biggest roadblocks that any business or brand or legacy or family or human interaction can be caused. The quality of those interactions can be completely up to the level of communication. And then we have this additional problem that what you deem effective communication and what I deem effective communication can be so varied that sometimes it makes it even more difficult to find that balance, to find that middle ground where everybody gets what they need. But I also find it really, really disappointing when just little steps towards building better communication aren't engaged in either. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about, or tonight, wherever you are. I realized we actually have quite the overseas following on these lives, post go live, because obviously right now most of them are asleep, which is just lovely. So it really, I now get to say I'm a global speaker. Watch my head grow. But what basically I want to talk to you about today is some of the symptoms of poor communication. And if any of these ring a bell for you in the way that you do business, or you might be a business that is a solopreneur at the moment, but what I want you to also consider is, do you find these occur in your personal life, in your, we talk about value-driven brands, but equally the point of having a value-driven brand is so that you can have a value-driven life. Jeff and I were chatting the other day about the work that him and his team have been achieving, which is so magnificent. And yeah, okay, fine, you fell short a little bit. But the reality is that when you start to hit those points of becoming a value-driven brand, the outcome is you go home and you start to be able to lead a value-driven life because things are starting to be, make sense. The momentum that you're achieving starts to take on its own life so that you have the ability to then marry that momentum up with the way that you live your life as well. Jeff's probably sitting there going, yeah, not yet, Aileen. But we're getting there. You're getting there. It's all a process. So let's talk about the symptoms of poor communication, right? The symptoms of poor communication, just some of the most common. There are a shit ton. Let's be blunt. Poor LinkedIn doing the subtitles today would just be going beep, 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 beep. I'm in a bit of a swearing mood. My apologies. But symptoms, when we talk about the symptoms, those are a process in progress. Absolutely. Yes, I love that. One of my most common observed symptoms, so part of what I do when I go into an organization and I do consulting to them, I have what I call my signature system. So in my signature system, it is made up of 3 key components. And the first component is me doing random or a survey of randomized customers. And the second part is so interesting. It is me going into the organization and doing what I call operational observations. And that is basically me being a fly on the wall. And it is fascinating to witness firsthand some of these symptoms of poor communication. And when I went back and I looked at some of the data from those observations, some of the most common symptoms included distrust, right? So if you're in a business and you are walking around, you might be the leader, you don't trust your team. And a perfect example of this that I came up against time and time again, and this was well before COVID, well before any pandemic that forced organizations hand into flexible working arrangements. But so many of the companies that I worked with didn't trust their team to fulfill flexible working arrangements. And they believed that if they let their team work from home, that the team would, go and do the washing instead of doing reports, or, they would find ways to not do their work and abuse the flexibility and the trust that they had been given. And I thought that was so interesting. But then on the flip side, you had so many equal examples of the team not trusting leadership, right? And they always thought that there was a hidden agenda. They always presumed that, there was something else underlying decisions, or that they didn't take into account the full situation before making a decision, therefore creating further, poor communication and consequences to those decisions. So the reality is, and then even worse, when you have distrust amongst your customers. So for those, maybe in the finance field, I was mentoring a mortgage and finance advisor recently, and he and I were talking about his customer experience journey and how he can get them from knowing who he is to using his services and loving them so much that they trust him enough to then advocate for his business. And it was actually quite difficult. Normally it's quite a easy-ish transition if you're good at what you do and you love what you do and you're there to deliver value. But because of the institutions that he represented, which was, he doesn't have a direct impact on those institutions, he, in essence, to gain brand trust from his customers, he somehow had to convince his customers that the institutions that he represented were also trustworthy. What a pain in the ass. He did it. He's amazing. Just saying. If you need a mortgage broker, let me know. I'll give you his details. But you can see how that distrust from customers is also a massive problem when it comes to the way that you communicate. And if you don't communicate effectively, authentically, and in a timely and open manner, you absolutely are on your bandwagon you're on the path to creating more distrust in what you do. So what else we got? Misaligned priorities. Oh God, if this doesn't even just happen in any business, no matter how big or small you are, misaligned priorities. If you're sitting there and you say to someone, all right, so today I need to get XYZ done. And they go, no, mate, ABC is where it's at. If you don't get ABC done, we're not making the money. We're not keeping the roof over our heads. So you have misaligned priorities. And the misalignment comes down to the fact that you haven't communicated effectively. So what's going to happen? What are the consequences to misaligned priorities? Well, if you don't do ABC, you're going to not get paid. If you think XYZ might be, in my case, writing a new workshop is more important than getting on the phone and confirming a lead, then I potentially am going to miss out on an income. So how do we then mitigate those consequences and realign those priorities? And you could say, well, they're different people have different priorities, different roles have different priorities. Absolutely. But in some way, they all need to align. And so that's where absolute imperativeness around the way you communicate. What are you aligning it to? So with my customers, for example, I make sure that they always understand what their business and brand purpose and vision are, so that their priorities always align to those first, above all else, right? And then you can make it more granular from there. But if you don't have that communication, if you don't have the mode in which you communicate consistently and openly, then you're going to end up with misaligned priorities. You're going to lose an income. You're going to potentially lose the people you work with because they can't deal with the misalignment. Same with distrust. The consequence to that, I wrote an article the other day. It's something like between $10,000 and $55,000 to re-recruit a new team member, depending on the level at which they're at. $10,000 just to get a team member. That is insane. Is your poor communication worth that? If that was a senior manager or an executive, you're looking at upwards of $55K. Got to spare $55K? I don't. And even if I did, that's not what I want to spend it on. I'd rather spend it on me helping you. I'm not going to be corny, but you get my point, right? You're just throwing money away if you can't find a mode in which to communicate effectively. What's another one? Oh, double handling. Double handling is one of my absolute pet hates. Pet hates. If I see something get done more than once, I'm annoyed. And I'm not talking about creating a draft or something, that is an obvious situation. I'm the kind of person that when I do the shopping, when I go food shopping, tell me if this is you as well. When I go do food shopping, I do everything in my power to bring all the food shopping in one trip. I am 5'3", but I have got guns on me, probably because of that. That's about the exercise I get as well. So you can imagine then how much I loathe watching businesses do the same shit over and over again because they haven't communicated that there's a way to do it and that it has already been done. An example, I was working for a client and they had a wonderful CRM system so that every time they contacted a customer, the team were then meant to put a note into that customer's file. And the team refused to use that system because in their mind, they hadn't been trained on how to use it. But again, they had been trained, but maybe that training didn't really sit with the mode in which they take in information. Therefore, they didn't feel like they'd been communicated to. So they refused to use the system. So then what would happen is that customer would get 3 phone calls from 3 different people because there was no point of truth around who had communicated to that customer. So 3 different people would do one job that only needed to be done once, and therefore the customer experience and the employee experience became so diminished that customers actually started abusing the employees because they didn't need to hear it 3 times. Can you see how that has such a detrimental effect on the way that you deliver your brand? And if they've got 3 people with the time to do the same shit 3 times, imagine what amazing stuff they could have been doing instead if they just said, hey, I'm going to use this system. Or if the organization took, notice of the fact that there was obviously a problem with the team refusing to use the system and maybe challenge themselves on a different way of delivering the training that would be considered more effective and more effective in the way that they take information in and communicate how they needed to fulfill that process. So if you walk around your business and you think, I can see those symptoms in my business, then you need to understand that the financial and the human consequences to the way you do business are at threat. Now, I generally hate sitting here going, doom and gloom. But if the reality of if you can't communicate effectively doesn't work for you, then welcome to doom and gloom. That is the reality. And it's not here to fearmonger you, but it is certainly here to get you, as they say, get your ass off the needle. Get uncomfortable because you are clearly too comfortable with the fact that communication is so poor. And if it's not that poor, but you've seen examples of it come up every now and then please don't ignore it. There are so many things that you can do to help get it back to where it needs to be so the consequences are not consequences at all. So that you certainly do everything you can to get that joy of sex in your organization. Because that's what you need to become a value-driven brand. If you don't have the sex in there, if you don't have the high-quality, value-driven customer, employee, and human experience, then you will not have a value-driven brand. And so much of that comes down to the communication that you deliver and the communication that you accept as a leader of that organization. So, want to have some hot tips on how to turn that ship around? Yeah, you thought I was going to say shit, didn't you? Yeah, nah, tricked you. No, let's turn that ship around. Number one, active listening. What does active listening mean? Well, it means just listen. Open your bloody ears. Listen. Don't just presume you know what everybody's talking about. And my favorite is, and I used to do this, and I worked so hard because everybody knows how much I like to talk, but I used to listen with the intent of responding. And one of the best activities that I have challenged myself as a leader is to just listen and not listen to respond. And I want you to challenge yourself to do exactly the same thing. And that might mean that after someone has explained something to you or communicated something to you, that maybe there is a slight awkward silence for a moment while you process what you are listening to. And that's okay. Because the difference between just listening to then wait your turn to speak again versus listening to consider what you have just had communicated to you can end up with very different outcomes. So active listening, be engaged in what they're saying and consider what they're saying. You know, the organization that I said before who the team didn't want to use the system, the CRM system, I asked them about that. I said, this is a massive downfall for you. You are potentially wasting so much time, money, effort, experience, customers. The consequences are just endless. And they said, oh, they're just whinging. Are they though? Or are you just not listening? Maybe if you changed your tactics, the way you did it, they'd have nothing to whinge about. How about that? Think about that. If you think your team wins a lot, well, maybe they're not the right team, or maybe you just need to change the way you do business. Call me, we can figure out which one's which. I'm happy. I love talking about whinging teams because it's usually our fault. To be honest, if we're the leader, we're accountable for that. Why are they whinging? What have we given them to whinge about? Right? Maybe we need to communicate better. Lead the way. The second thing I want you to consider, and I have talked about this so often, and I'm not going to stop, is being candid. Candid means upfront, open, honest, not rude, not being an asshole, but just being upfront and honest and timely. There is no point in beating around the bush when it comes to communication because so here's an example. I just got an invitation to a wonderful event, beautiful event. I'm so looking forward to going, but I don't actually know. It kind of beats around the bush. I don't actually know if it's a invitation. It says it's an invitation exclusive to me. I don't know if I'm being invited or as a guest, or if I'm being invited and I'm going to get to the door and they're going to ask me for the ticket price. Or I don't know, because the email is a little bit beating around the bush. It's not upfront and it's not candid. It's now leaving me to guess what it means. And if you communicate like that in your organization, it's going to be no bloody wonder people are walking around with their heads up their asses. Because they're just guessing. Because they're too scared to ask. They're too scared to be candid because nobody wants to offend anybody. And when you are candid, it's not because you want to be offensive. It's just because that is the quickest route to getting to the solution route if you're from other parts of the world. I love trying to decipher my language for other people. It's quite humorous. Be candid. Practice being candid. And if you are in an organization where candid discussions are not the norm, you then certainly need to set up the context for that to become the norm. Please don't just walk in and go, your idea sucks and this is what I think we could do differently. Right? You need to get people primed for a candid conversation. And I generally, especially because I don't have my own organization per se, but I work in a lot of organizations. So I know very quickly that they're not used to my candidness. But I generally, and trust me, it gets more candid than this, but I generally ask their permission. Can I be upfront and candid with you? And I want you to practice asking people that. Can I be upfront and candid with you? And if they say yes, then articulate and communicate with honesty. Don't be hurtful, but also don't be scared to hurt their feelings in the sense that it needs to be said. Please don't leave people walking off from a conversation with you, having them wonder what the fuck you just meant. Because it will not build your trusted, value-driven brand. Capiche? Number 3, clarity. In one of my jobs, I got told that I asked too many questions. Fancy that. I love asking questions. I love making people think about what they're doing or think about how they explain it. And in a lot of cases, I ask questions because, number one, I know full well that the person communicating did not communicate or articulate what they wanted clearly. Therefore, they did not create clarity. Therefore, they are alluding to the consequence of people walking away confused and not doing the right thing. And B, because I'm not scared to ask stupid questions or be seen to ask stupid questions, because I know full well everybody's probably thinking the same thing. And I know I think people are thinking the same thing. Over the 20-something years that I have just asked far too many questions, not too many questions, but a lot of questions that other people wouldn't necessarily ask, I have had hundreds of people in my experience come up to me and go, I am so glad you asked that, because I had no idea what they were talking about. So I want you to start getting used to asking questions. If you are the leader, ask your team questions. It shows them you care, right? Don't micromanage, but ask questions. Be interested. Ask them, instead of giving them a solution, ask them what they think, right? Then encourage your team to ask you questions. You know why people used to hate me asking questions? Because they had a big fat ego that they thought I was challenging. Maybe I was. Maybe I was challenging them to do a better job, but also challenging them to think about the fact that they hadn't done their job properly, but also challenging them to figure out different ways of skinning a cat. Just because you came up with the idea and you're the boss doesn't mean that you know all the answers. So put the ego down. It's not a bad thing to have people question you. It's actually a really good thing, because you might just find a better way to skin the cat by involving other people and helping them find clarity in your message. Same deal with this. I fucking love it when people contact me after these lives and ask me questions. And yes, it challenges me to articulate my message better, but it also makes me realize that they care enough to ask the question. So instead of getting upset that somebody questions you or asks you questions, reframe. As I say to my Momentum Business Accelerator group, let's play the reframe game and reframe it. Be grateful that they care enough to ask the question instead of just walking away thinking, well, that was bullshit. I didn't even know what that was. I don't know what I'm meant to do with that. Right? So let's reframe it to they care. That's why they ask. At one point, I even went to the point of renaming the title in my LinkedIn profile saying, I am the asker of questions. Because I did. And especially when I would start consulting for a new organization, man, if they had to pay me $1 for every question I asked, actually, no, that wouldn't work. I'd stop asking questions. Just lots of questions, but good questions, right? We know the difference between open questions and closed questions. Sometimes a closed question's just as good, but try and steer over to the open questions so you can get more insights, right? Because that's where it's at. Clarity, insights, great communication, trusted, value-driven brand. That's what I want for all of you, and I know you can do it. So that is it from me today. It was a little bit longer than normal. I'm an hour about bringing these down a little bit to like 10, 15 minutes. I don't know how that would work. I really enjoy them. I feel like I'd only just be ripping you off. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Half an hour too far? Maybe. But, that's the beauty of it. You can watch it at your own leisure. All right, well, I'd love your feedback. Tell me what you think. Maybe I'll just give you one tip on how to fix it, and you'll just have to pay me to find out the other two. Actually, that's not a bad idea. No, we're all about giving you everything you need. But if you need more than that, then please feel free to hit me up in my DMs. I consent. And let's talk about getting the joy of sex in your organization, because I know that is definitely something that you need, that your customers need, and that your employees need, and just the human race in general needs more of it. More sex. All right, that is it for me. Until next time, I will be, will I be around on Sunday? I'm not sure. If I am, we're here. Great. Tune in. If not, maybe something came up. But I look forward to seeing you all next time. And until then, get out there, deliver value to somebody else in your life, because what goes around comes around. I'm Aileen Day. Until then.